Well, some of you know me and have for a while, Bernie and some others. I'm Mike Bell. I've lived in Edinburgh now 21 years, and I grew up in Coles County, and we came over, my wife and I, for teaching jobs. I've been interested in doing things in government and community endeavors for a long time. I started that back in high school. And I think that this has just grown as I found that I was interested in and enjoyed doing that sort of thing. I found that you needed experience to do it in doing it. So I got as much experience as I could. I sat down with our state senator, Senator Coffey, and had a conversation with him once, and he told me, get as much experience as you can, local government and community involvement and that sort of thing. And he gave me some ideas, and I got to help him eventually with his campaign. So that was very helpful in doing so. So I've been teaching about 25 years. I'm a graduate of Lakeland College. Very proud to go to Lakeland. My mother went door to door with some other parents to help get that college started. And so I got to go to the same college that my mom helped get started. And graduated from there, as did my wife. We met later, and then on to Eastern and graduated with a dual major, special education and elementary education, and then went back and got a master's in educational administration, and almost all of my coursework in a specialist for the superintendency. My wife got her master's at UIS after we had been over here for a while. She still teaches in Edinburgh, where I taught the last 6 years. As I said, we came over here for teaching jobs. She's on the faculty there as the Title I teacher and the librarian. And she has about 3 more years, and she'll retire. I'm on the school board there. It's kind of an interesting situation. We were about to lose our school. Same situation in a lot of folks with a lot of small schools. Another teacher and I got together. He'd retired also. And some community members, a gentleman from ADM, worked at ADM, and some others, and decided that we had had enough input from the public that they wanted to save the school. Our school board, early on, we're a unique community. We're so small, about 1,100, that we got everybody in my wife's library, if you can imagine this, that wanted to come, and said, our board president, Mrs. Barton, said, this is where we're at. We're not going to be able to go much farther. Do you want to consolidate? Do you want to try our best to keep our school? What do you want to do? If you can, tell us where you'd like to go. Well, they said we'd like to keep our school if we could. I mean, it's been here for years. It's our biggest employer. If we could not, we would like to look at consolidating with South Fork, Kincaid. If that doesn't work, then we would like to look at Taylorville. So that's what we did. Mr. Collins and Mr. Dane and I and some other community members decided we would help keep our school. So we did, and we met in the community. And the one thing I did as co-chairman of that was reach out to as many community members as I could for their input, because you learn so much by asking. And they were extremely helpful, gave us lots of ideas about how and why we should keep our school. And we then would go to the board with questions and concerns, and we worked together. And it had deteriorated to the point where it was hard to even get board members. People run for the board. A lot of people felt like we were going to lose our school. We only have 300 kids, and oh boy, now that's a problem. So we actually, believe it or not, as a group, went to people's homes, sat down with them, and asked and told them why we were there. Asked, some of them were former students. Would you be interested in serving on the school board? We would like to keep our school. Would you help us? We filled every spot, but one. Guy came up to me later and said, I didn't know they were. I said, you must be the only one in the community not to have talked to Mike Bell or Hank Collins, because I thought we talked to all 1,100. I ran for it, and I talked to a number of people, and folks at state board, friends of mine that were superintendents, regional superintendent. I said, this looks like I'm just not totally comfortable with this. They said, my wife teaches there. They said, don't worry about it. There are certain things that, professionally you won't want to get involved in when you negotiate raises and things like that. But otherwise, you should be fine. And it happens all over. You can't help it, Mike. You've tried every way in the world to find somebody. So I got on. That was a no-brainer because nobody else wanted to fill that last spot. And I said, we've got a unique community. They put a mentor with me to teach me how to be a school board member. And so they did. And after 2 years, they asked me if I'd like to be president. And I said, no. I'm smart enough to know I'm not ready. But I'm confident enough to know that I'd like to be your vice president. And I would like to then get next to the president and learn. And I said, may I suggest, though, you think about co-presidents, because we have that with our highway group, and it really works well. We've had it with our Save Our School group. They weren't sure, they'd never done that before, but that's exactly what we have today, co-presidents, the Edinburgh School Board. And it works well. We have a new superintendent. We laid off 20% of our staff. We were a bit overstaffed. And now we're almost bare bones, not quite. We're rebuilding. We had to do a 3-year deficit spending plan. We did that. The state requires that. Every person got a raise. You have a step increase each year, and all of them got one. We wanted them to know that we cared about them, that we could give something. Everybody in Edinburgh, a lot of the teachers, we all pulled together because we care about school. And that was okay to do that. They were good with that. And one of our 20-year members, Mr. Brocklesby, on the board said, see, I told you I wasn't going to give up until we got this contract hammered out and everybody was happy and satisfied. And to me, that's the mark of a good school board member. And we have our school today. We now have about $400,000 put back, and we are now, I'm happy to say, adding back programs that we cut years ago. And we add them back at the right place. We have home ec and we have shop at the junior high, not the high school, because you need a feeder program. We kept all of our material in the home ec room for years. Everybody thought we were crazy, but we didn't. We thought surely someday we might be able to have home ec again. My son and some others really profited from home ec. And we felt like it was something that was worthwhile. 52% of the jobs are going to require some kind of vocational skills, and that starts at the high school, the junior high and high school, with good vocational programs. We knew it was important. So now what do you do about teachers? Because you don't need a full-time teacher, and it is really hard to find a home ec teacher. You ask. We have found out in our community, in our school, that one thing a lot of people forget about is asking. We're a pretty giving country. If you just ask, it's amazing what you'll get. So we ask, do you folks like to teach anything else? And it's amazing how many hands went up. People wanted to do something a little bit different. And so our 5th grade teacher teaches home ec a period or so a day. Our math PE teacher, our PE teacher and driver's ed teacher teaches shop, and they love it, and they're good at it. You're allowed to do about a period a day out of your subject area. We were good with that, and that worked out fine. It's at the junior high level, and so we're adding back programs. And so we have risen from the ashes. And that's my story about our school, and I'm really, really proud of our school.
And so now you're making a leap.
So we are. Sheila Simon, I remembered Sheila Simon saying one time, and I met her out on the sidewalk in front of the Capitol, and I remember her saying, don't just jump into consolidation, think about some in-between steps, sharing subjects, called shared resources. I proposed that to the board. Aaron Dane, that was on our Save Our School committee, just jumped in with that and wouldn't let go of it. And so we started sharing resources. Can't find a Spanish teacher, but South Fork had one. Can't find an ag teacher, but Edinburgh had one. So we share those. We share about 4 subjects in common.
Well, I'm sorry, but what I meant is, we want to know more about why you're running for this state office.
Okay.
Can you
Yep.
go to that?
So I can. So
Okay.
we've saved the school, and I think that experience in saving the school, sharing resources, learning how to do that will lend itself well to once I'm a legislator, because we're going to talk about schools consolidation. We're going to talk about feasibility studies. We're going to talk about funding schools. We're going to talk about how small schools make it and how you offer things. I think I can talk from that experience and explain to them and other legislators how that can successfully be done.
Well, from your experience, what should the state be doing in education policy that maybe it's not doing now?
One of the things I think they need to be doing, of course, is funding schools, and they're not. We're near the bottom, and that wreaks a real havoc. We have to have, in fact, we need to have the Andy Manar legislation that he's proposed is something that, and I don't have that bill number, but I like. We need a different funding system. Ours is archaic. It relies way too heavily on property, so we have to do that. Not everyone should have to go through what we did. We're fortunate, but not everybody's that fortunate. And we may not eventually be able to rely on that.
You just kind of, when you announced, I mentioned that you wouldn't mind extending the income tax, and now you've changed positions.
Well,
If it was for pensions.
Ray Poe had mentioned that, and I thought it was a good idea at the time to consider it. And I did say that, but I had not gone out and talked to all of the people gathering petitions. When I went out and talked to them, it's probably been 3,000 or 4,000 people. I asked them about that, and they all told me that they thought they were taxed enough. Well, you stop and think it's not about it's not about me that's running. It's not about someone else. It's about the people that you represent. So you need to be listening, I feel like, to them. And yes, it's called changing your position a little bit. I have, because that's what they told me they wanted. They did not want to pay more taxes. After all, that tax was billed as a temporary tax by Governor Quinn.
But that will take over a full fiscal year, $5 billion or so out
It will.
of
It will.
the budget.
$5 billion.
In turn is going to put more pressure on
It is.
trying to fund education.
It is. It is. But there are other areas to look for that. And we have to
Such as?
We need to be looking at Medicaid. That's a big one. That takes about 1/4 of a $33 or plus billion budget, and it's growing. And just from some study and some scrubbing, we found that there are many, many people on there that are ineligible. Now that would be a place to start. I'm not saying it's the end all, but when it's comprising 1/4 of your budget, then you have to look at that, just as we did with the school. You've got to look at all areas.
By the way, just in the Edinburgh situation, did you have to raise like a local property tax too to keep things going?
No, we didn't.
Or anything?
We didn't.
Nothing?
We didn't go to the voters on that either.
Okay, and there was no, so you ended up not consolidating?
We're doing the feasibility study, which is exactly what Sheila Simon was one of the things she talked about, the in-between steps, doing the feasibility studies, doing the shared resources. And, it's not everything the state says is bad. Sometimes they have some good ideas if you're willing to listen.
And by the way, feasibility study for possible consolidation?
It is, Bernie.
And when did all this happen? When did you get on the school board? How many years ago?
I've been on the school board soon to be 3 years.
Okay, so
hard to
this
believe.
was like in the year,
That's
2009,
3 years ago,
2010?
almost 3 years ago now.
2011.
Mm-hmm.
So the feasibility study is with
South Fork.
So, I know it's a leap, but so assume those two come together.
Sure.
How large would the district be?
That would be on the ballot this coming fall. And that would make our enrollment, we have 300 kids, pre-K through 12. They actually have more students than us. I think they've got closer to 400, so that would make close to 700. So you're going to more than double in size.
And you have an opinion on that yet, or are you waiting for the study?
We're waiting for the study. They met. I had a highway meeting Wednesday night, so they met Wednesday night as well. And that's there's a timeline. They have to complete things, and that's not finished yet. But that'll go before the voters if they find that it's feasible.
So beyond Medicaid, have you thought of areas or identified areas that you think?
I have not. It hinders me by not being there. But I know that's one big area, and it's one area that that you hear a lot about, talked to a lot of people about.
What do you think of Speaker Madigan's plan announced yesterday about the cutting half the main part of?
No, I like that
corporate
idea.
income tax?
I like that idea, but again, the devil's in the details, as they say, and we haven't seen all the details on that.
When it comes to the pension
Sure.
reform law that they just approved and it's now being challenged, do you
Sure.
think that's constitutional? Do you think that's going to withstand the courts, or where do you stand on that?
I think the legislation they passed is unconstitutional. I think it's very clear, and the problem with it, it's going to only get worse while it lingers in court.
Do you get a teacher pension?
I do.
And your wife will too when
She
she
will.
retires?
Yep. Got me on that one.
All right, well then, say you're in there and then it gets tossed. So the legislature must, what do you do at that point? What would pass muster for you to approve to try to start working on this problem?
You know, I cannot understand why they don't compromise more. I liked Senate Bill 2404. I thought that was a pretty good compromise. Or at the very least, it was a darn good beginning, and it involved all parties, and that's what you've got to have. You've got to get more people to the table. And this idea of a line in the sand and not crossing, it's got to end. You've got to have compromise. And I do think, as with 2404, you probably should pay more for your pension. Things go up. Costs go up. It's the way it is. It hasn't been incrementally changed, I mean, to me anyway, like it should have been over the years. And I've got experience with that, and being on the village board for 10 years, raising water rates after they hadn't been raised. I couldn't go in a restaurant for 6 months after we raised the water rates, but it had to be done. Sometimes we wait too long for things.
I know you've been involved as co-chair of the Illinois 29.
Project 29.
Project 29
I
to
have, Bernie.
expand to
4
4
lane.
lanes out to Taylorville.
That's 6.3 miles.
Sue Scheer, who's the incumbent, has talked about cutting the sales tax on gasoline, and that's really not necessarily a road funding thing, but what should be done, do you agree with that, and what do you think should be done for road construction, so people like you that want projects to get them done?
I would like to see more money put in to the fund that would allow us to have more, because my goodness, more road building, and I'm an old road builder. My dad had dump trucks. We worked for Champaign Asphalt. I hauled asphalt. That's one of the reasons I understand this project so well. And working for an asphalt company, just as an example to segue from what you're saying, this is a $46 million project that employs almost 600 people. Now that's real economic development. That's putting a lot of people to work in Christian County and in Sangamon County. And that, of course, it plays right into the economy. They're spending money in Edinburgh. They're spending money in all the other towns. They're good jobs, and well, it's important. And there are so many projects, so many road projects, 51 in Decatur, that can be completed.
So
It'll put
what's
people to
your,
work.
obviously, should there be a higher gas tax, or where would the money come from?
I'm not sure on that.
Because I've got these gambling, all these bars
know.
and restaurants and
Sure.
places is paying for the
Mhm.
past plan, so
Mhm.
what pays for the next?
Again, I'm not in there yet, so, but I believe in that, and I believe that, that should be to me, it should be something we look at, because we all know we have crumbling roads. We do need better roads, and that's something will put a lot of people to work. I'm not sure where the money, but lowering the gas tax puts a lot of money in people's pockets. I understand that. I don't know where you make up the money, though. It's good to say that, and I understand that in theory. We talk about other cuts, but then when you talk practically about it, sometimes that's difficult.
Minimum wage, what are your thoughts on where minimum wage should land?
I do have a feeling on that, and I've talked to. Yesterday, I started going up and down Dirksen, talking to every business from J.C. Penney's to the end of that highway, and then started over and went down the other side. And I asked that question to almost everybody, and you kind of get a little bit of a mixed bag. But you know what? I didn't find a single merchant that said cut that. But I found everybody that said, leave it where it's at. Leave it where it's at. And that's what I agree. And I really believe that now because I've talked to people that I'm going to represent. They're right in my district. They're people that, these are family-owned businesses, a lot of them.
When do you raise it? Like, when in your?
Well, we're $1 ahead of federal. So wait till the federal, if it's going to catch up, and all of us heard Obama's speech the other night. If it catches up, that's fine, but I think we need to leave ours right where it's at now.
Would you be against ever putting it higher than the federal rate then?
I'd have to wait and see. I don't know to answer that. I wish I could answer that. All I can do right now is say what the merchants and the businesses are telling me they feel right now with it.
Go ahead.
Perhaps unexpected, but you have a opponent in the primary.
I do.
Landon Malden, who moved to Springfield 2 years ago, loves Lincoln and likes, business development and gun rights and stuff like that. Why are you better than him, or are you better?
It's good to talk about some of the things he's talking about. I'm a vice president of our school board, and he's talked about guns in schools. I cannot imagine. I've been a teacher, 35 years. I can't imagine having guns in the hands of teachers or school administrators in a public school. I just can't, and I feel like I have something to say about that.
Are you a Second Amendment guy?
I'm a Second Amendment guy, got guns.
Because truly, when we see Wayne LaPierre, he said, what you need to stop a bad guy with a gun in the school is a good guy with a gun in the school, but you disagree with him on that.
I don't agree with that, and perhaps if I hadn't been a teacher or a current vice president of the school board, I might feel differently, but I'm too close to it now to feel any other way. And to be quite honestly, even when I was teaching at the prison, there weren't guns in a prison either. A lot of people think officers carry guns up and down the hall. They don't.
And what is the problem with it? Is it that they wouldn't know how to use it, or they would use it inappropriately, or?
Well, personally, I would be afraid that it might get away from the teacher. A kid get it. I've talked to teachers, and I'm sure you're going to find exceptions. But I know certainly my wife, and I've talked to some others, that they're not an advocate for having guns. That's not why they went into this. If it's getting that bad, and I understand it is in some cases, and that's a whole other matter. Amusement parks. I can't see it there either. Now, I understand in some schools that you have an officer there. I understand that. Somebody from the police department that works there. A lot of those have been cut, unfortunately. I understand them having perhaps a gun. I got that, the safety officer. But that's different. That's different.
Are there any areas where you think it should be that is currently banned, and are there other changes to the concealed carry law that you think would be appropriate?
Doug, I've thought about that, and I've asked that question yesterday, in fact. I think the concealed carry, it's a pretty tough law, as it's written, ought to be, let that play out. If we need, and I've asked people, matter of fact, I asked a guy, this is Friday, right? I asked a guy Wednesday or Thursday that has a business on Dirksen about that, and he said, I would like to see, if anything, the 16 hours maybe scaled back a little bit. Now that's what my constituents are telling me. I'm not advocating that. I'm for leaving it as it is, and let's see how it plays out and how it does for a while. We haven't had a law very long with that.
Are you a gun owner?
I am.
By the way,
Are you applying for concealed carry?
I have not yet.
Do you
No.
intend to?
Do I intend to? Most likely I will.
if you get through the primary with
Sure.
that strong backing from the same kind of Republican Party.
I am going to get through the primary.
And others, we'll see. Sue Scher is the incumbent,
She
and
is.
she has a primary.
She
of her own,
does.
but how would you be different from her? Because she's pretty conservative on
Mhm.
fiscal matters. In fact, sounds downright Republican in a lot of.
She does.
She wants to.
She does.
Cut
There
that
is this-
sales tax on gas and.
There is.
Remove the extension of the income tax immediately, et cetera.
Yes, she does.
So how
But-
would you be a different
But
person?
there is a definite difference between Sue Shear and myself. As far as that goes, probably the other two candidates. We can all talk about creating jobs, but I think I can show that I have created jobs. I co-chair the highway. We're now building a new gas station, relocating the gas station and making it not just a gas station, but a truck stop. We're adding Subway, and we're going to have 20 new jobs in a town of 1,000, 1,100 people. Now, that's real job creation, and I work with that all the time because I'm also on the County Economic Development Board. I've gone before companies that have said, we're possibly leaving Illinois, and asked them, what do I need to do? You might all in this room be surprised. There aren't a lot, you wouldn't be surprised, but there aren't a lot of things in our bag to keep companies here. But the one thing that I was able to keep that company in Illinois with was our education. And we can't keep cutting education because we do a good job of educating our kids. These folks had small children, and I told them that I believe they want to go to Texas. I believe we can out-educate Texas. And I said I need only to also show you, and they build barges. 2 examples of vocational schools, Decatur, Illinois, and Springfield, and community colleges that are excellent in both communities. And that's where I believe we have it over Texas. We've got great public schools, but we also have great vocational centers and great community colleges. And I ended up bringing in one of the best welding instructors, I think, in the area, and having a conversation with him, and telling him how we could get a stream of qualified welders in. They stayed in Illinois.
Did you mention who this company is, or you want to?
I don't know if they want me to, but it's okay. They build barges in Taylorville.
Who knew?
I know. Isn't that something? I know. And they do a good
Is
job.
there a waterway here?
No, they truck them.
Okay.
They truck them. Yeah. I'm confident about economic development. I like it. I love to create jobs because when a person has a job, your whole outlook is better. It's different. You're positive. It also is good for the whole. We're not on the programs where you have to have assistants. It's just good for everybody. It's a win-win. I like to be the person that helps create the jobs, and I've been allowed to do that. I've had some success with it. That's where I think I'm different than the others. And usually you do better at something that you like to do, and I love creating jobs.
Some state governments across the country, and I don't know if Illinois will be here with the Democratic tilt of the legislature right now, but they have been passing things that restrict abortion rights. Can you just say where you're at on that? If
Sure.
you think the law should be changed in any way?
No, I'm pro-life.
And what exceptions or is Illinois law where it needs to be?
I'm good with it the way it is.
Flat tax, graduated tax. what do you-
Graduated tax. You think you would ask that? Gosh, the graduated tax. I'm not a proponent of that. I'm not for that. I don't mind asking people how they feel about whether they pay enough taxes or not. But I think they're going to tell me the same thing that 3,000 or 4,000 others have. We already pay enough. And the graduated tax is going to cause a lot of people, a lot of businesses, to pay more. That's the way it's built. So I'm not a fan of that. I don't mind asking people. I don't have a problem with that if they would want to pay more taxes. I mean, after all, it's not about me. It's about the people I represent. A lot of politicians, I think, get wrapped up in it's about me. I'm not. I've already had my career, folks. Yeah, I'm a retired educator. This is something just like the school board. If this didn't pay anything, I'd like to get my expenses back. I would still do it because I want to live here. My son works at UPS. He's a full-time driver. He graduated from the community colleges. He graduated from Edinburgh. It's the American dream. He doesn't want to leave. I don't want to leave. I'm born and raised in Illinois. Got deep roots here. I'd rather try to help fix it. Working with unions, that's another difference between me and the folks I'm running against. I founded the legislative committee with a local ASME chapter that I belong to. And so by virtue of that, I've had to ask, didn't have to, I wanted to ask in both Republicans and Democrats. And working on pensions, I've worked with both Republicans and Democrats on advocating to make sure that it's sound, it's fair, it's constitutional. The highway, I invite Republicans and Democrats to my meetings all the time. You have to, because that's who's going to fund it. So I've already learned how to work with both sides. And I think I can. I think I've got the personality that I can get along with everyone.
Our president recently said that he thinks alcohol or marijuana is no worse than alcohol as an addiction or a problem. You've worked in prisons and schools, and Illinois just passed medical marijuana. And what do you think of any change in law for sentencing or decriminalization, or where are you?
No, I don't.
Do you agree with what this legislature has done already?
I do. It's pretty strict, and I would like to see. I'd like to see how that works. I want to see if anyone abuses it. I'd like to see how that plays. That's a new one also. See how that plays out. And it could be there. We have to look at that as well, just like with I don't conceal carry, but it's new and it's on the books, and let's see how it plays out.
You've worked with inmates in the prison system. You were saying
Yeah.
earlier. I noticed earlier this week some conversation come up with the governor candidates about prison closures and
You know,
where do you stand on? Has the prison system been right-sized, or do we need to make other changes?
no, that's another difference between my opponents and I. A big part of this conversation, the budget, is about closures. It's about prisons. And you need only to understand prison overcrowding by being there. And I've been there. I was there when the officer said, Mike, I know you like to counsel your inmates and get them outside the door, and I come down, and that's good, before we write tickets. Can't ever do that anymore. There used to be two of us. I don't know if you know it, Mr. Bell, but I'm the only one now. So that's when they were laying off staff. So that's shorting the staff. There aren't enough employees, corrections, so it's very, very dangerous. That's when it first really came home to me that's really getting to be a concern. I have friends that still work in corrections. They tell me how dangerous it is. They tell me how overcrowded it is. So I'm not for closing. We just simply cannot close any more prisons.
And your experience was in Logan?
Logan Correctional Center. I was an educator.
Again, this is, so should there be fewer people in prison because of sentencing changes, or should there be more staff, and if so, where do you get the money back?
Right now, we certainly can't do with any less staff, Ray. That's for certain. We can't afford any more cuts. And I don't know where they're at with taking anyone else through the academy. I don't know if there's a class going through now or not. Does anybody know? I had a call the other day about that. But we certainly don't need any fewer officers. I think they are finally hiring maybe a few teachers, but we can't cut anymore. That's for sure.
The state does something that no family can get away with. It's not pay. It doesn't pay bills on time.
Bills. I know.
And this has been going on for a while. It's budgeted. And everybody who comes in seems to be fine with it. Or is this something that should stop?
It's embarrassing.
Next year or two, when the revenue is under control. I mean, what is your philosophy on this kind of thing? The deadbeat status of Illinois.
It's embarrassing. Yeah, it's embarrassing. Pay your bills. Why was that not a priority? Families we represent pay their bills, and that's who ask us all the time. Why can't you folks do what we do? We pay our creditors. No, it's got to be a priority. You've got to pay the bills.
Did you listen to the governor's State of the State?
I did. I was going door to door on Dirksen, but I did read it as much as I could about it. The highlights.
Any thoughts?
Any thoughts?
Yeah.
He's a proponent of raising minimum wage, and of course we disagree there. That's one of the things. And,
But the Birth to 5 programs.
the Birth to 5. Well, again, where's the money going to come from? That's my concern. We're barely able to take care of what we have, and I know everybody at this table. I understand. You guys are just like me. Everybody runs. They've got ideas, but they don't know where to get the money. And I'm sorry, I don't, but I'm not there. And if I said anything, I would either be lying or making it up. You may think, well, you should have given some thought to this. The best I can come up with right now is a place to begin. It's just like the school district. Putting Edinburgh and Southport together isn't the end, it's the beginning. Hopefully we can attract others. It's the same thing with this. Starting with Medicaid and making sure people are on there that rightfully deserve help is a beginning. But there've got to be other areas. There've got to be. We can't keep going down the road like this, or Mike and Gene and Brian and all my other people that I know, we're not going to be able to live here.
So would you tend to gravitate toward finding cuts to get out of a budget hole, or finding new revenue to get out of a budget hole, or looking at all the options? Like, where do you-
All options. You have to. I just went through this with the school. And I know, like Andy Menard says, when he talks about his experience on the county board, it may be small, but at least it gave me some insight before I got here. I think that's what happens a lot of times. Folks run, and they have not put these experiences in front of them so they can go through this and learn this and take this to the State House. I'd like to think that I have. There's no need to be here. There's not one. It's not about my picture and gosh, I got to be a state rep. It isn't about that at all. It's about wanting to be there, having the right experience, and using it. And I'll fight all the way to allow people, and I think I can, because I think once I explain, like I have to you folks, that I have gone through these things, I think I can get an audience. At least I should have some credibility.
Well, one of the revenue ideas that's floated off and on over the years is
Sure.
extending the sales tax to services. Is that something you'd be willing to consider, or are you philosophically opposed to that?
No, I'm not philosophically opposed to it. I just think people are, let me retract that. I think people are taxed enough. Doug, I do. So I would not be in favor of any new taxes, including on services. No, I wouldn't.
Doesn't it
So I am opposed
contradict,
to it.
I mean, you said that
Yeah,
we'd
I
have to look at
forget
all.
that.
but-
Yeah, forget the philosophically. No, that's a new tax, and the people that I'm talking to are telling me they're taxed enough, so that would be a new tax, and I would be against it.
So what role does kind of personal leadership take in your view of this office? And let me kind of back up. So people are saying we're taxed enough.
They are.
So you get into office, you look at the books, you figure out the Medicaid thing, man, that's not gonna get it. We're behind in paying our bills. These are new roads that we need. At what point do you say, you know, I heard you say that. Let me explain to you, as a leader, you elected me not only to just represent you, but to get the big picture and give you some information too. How's that work?
Well, I go back to my humble roots and trying to save the school. We ask people. We ask what they want to do. And I think that has to be a part of the mix. You're going to have to consider all options. You're going to have to get some people that have maybe gone through this. I'm not opposed to getting somebody from another state that's maybe gone through this and asking how they've gone through it and what they've done. We can't have all the answers, but you should be smart enough and humble enough to ask people that do have the answers and have maybe, have gone through this and can help you. And I'm not opposed to doing that. I understand, folks, that Michael Madigan is in charge, and very little that I want to do or say is going to happen if this man doesn't. And therein lies the problem. It's going to happen, and if you're asking me how I'm going to work with Michael Madigan, I don't know any more than anybody else would sitting here. But I think that you work with people that are able to work with him. And I know John Collerton a little bit. I've talked to him. And you try that avenue. Not everybody wanted to save the Edinburgh School, but you go to community members that have lived there their whole life and graduated from there that do, and you ask them to go out and speak on your behalf. After a while, they get tired of hearing Mike Bell. But they might listen to somebody else, like a John Collerton.
Are you in favor of the term limit amendment they're trying to get on the ballot?
I am for leadership. I would consider it for leadership. Let me put it that way. It's term limits for leadership I would like to consider. I don't know enough about it, and I'd like to look at any legislation proposed before I would carte blanche say, yes, I am. Because they have a habit of, in Springfield, of decorating this stuff like a Christmas tree. And what you say one day isn't what you get. So I'd like to look at it for leadership. But then I don't have to worry about me. I'll term limit myself. Anybody that's sloshed around in this weather, trying to get elected, I'll limit myself, and just like I will in the school board. I mean, when I find the day comes that I don't think I'm effective anymore, you need to step aside. This isn't a career.
The 96, it's largely viewed as a Democratic district, the way it was cut.
It is, isn't it?
It is.
I know.
You know, it takes in a lot of Decatur, takes in Springfield's east side, a significant minority community. Do you have inroads or any particular points of interest or policy that affects the minority community in particular, and how do you overcome what appears to be a Democratic district? You know, how do you win it?
Well, you're representing all people, and it's going to take both Republicans and Democrats to turn this state around. You'll notice, I'll give you a card later, but on my card, I don't have an elephant or a donkey. That's because I think I have to appeal to both Republicans and Democrats. I'm kind of an unusual Republican in some ways because at this point anyway in our life, unions. I'm a strong union person. I believe to have a strong middle class, unions are certainly essential, and I am for that. That's something that you probably might find with Democrats. So that's one of the things that I've tried to appeal to the Democrats with, and I think successfully. And I've been working with them with the unions for a long time. As for minorities, certainly my success in job creation, economic development, and my interest and passion for it, I think that will be appealing as well. And there are some programs in other areas that I think that I can call on that would be helpful.
I did a column recently on Sue Scher and just kind of her style of being a legislator,
I saw that.
which is a lot of door-to-door, but very little as far as media interviews. You don't seem shy about talking, but would you be different?
No.
In this?
No.
I mean, different than her?
No, I would be. I would be. It's not about me. It's not about me getting in front of a camera. It's not. I'm an old guy. I've had a wonderful career. I have. This is because I want and I feel I've got something under my belt that I can use to help. And different from her is she's good at sound bites. And I've talked to constituent after constituent that have told me that they've tried to engage in conversation, and it's hard. Well, you have to know your subject matter a little bit. I don't know everything, but I'd like to think that I know a little bit, and be able to talk to them. And I think there's a difference there.
You think she doesn't know her subject matter?
I think that sometimes it's just either difficult or she would prefer not to engage in that, and it may be some of that. Could be.
Now, when I called you to set up this interview, you were going door to door then. And you
Was,
said just the
yeah, I
other
was
day
that day.
You were going door to door on
I was.
Dirksen, you said. So, how much time are you spending talking to people? Do you
A
have
lot.
any idea how many doors you knocked on?
Yeah, you had to have 500 petition signatures, and they like 20% over, and you guys probably know that, to be safe, in case any are, as they call it, knocked off, because they shouldn't be on there. And then we got in some kind of a I didn't know who the person was up north, but between me and that person, and I ended up with almost 1,900. 1,888 to be exact. But once I got the 500, it got more comfortable because I knew I had what I needed, and you begin talking to people and asking. Because it does. It just gets into your psyche that, wait a minute, this is more than just getting a name down. These people matter. I mean, my goodness, what do they, maybe I can learn a lot by just asking. And so I probably talked to 3,000 or 4,000 people, and I learned a lot by asking about what they want and what they want different in government. Every single time I go to a business, which is what I'm doing right now, because the weather's been bad. I asked them, you know, if elected, what would you like to see different? This isn't a career move for me. What would you like to see different? And they'll tell you. They will. They'll open right up. A lot of it's red tape. I talked to a gentleman the other day who said, I've been trying to open a small business for 4 months, and I can't get all of the red tape finished. I can't get everything done.
That city or state stuff.
What?
City or
It's-
state red tape.
Well, his was state. His was state, and he's frustrated.
I didn't get a chance to warn you, we were at 10 minutes out.
Oh.
So, the alarm just went off.
Told you I
Go
taught
ahead.
school.
Take any final questions, and then, does anyone else have anything to ask, John, Doug? Would you like to close this out, just with a sort of a final?
I would. I think the biggest difference between, and what should stand out between me and the folks that I'm running against, is that I've talked to 3,000 or 4,000 people at least, if not more by now. And they all want three things, and as you can imagine, they're all jobs. Just about all of it's jobs. And if they're not affected themselves, they either have a family member, a neighbor, or someone they know who's out of a job, or is underemployed. And I think I've got the background to help create those jobs. I understand, after talking to these folks, that I needed to go out and talk to the larger employers and the small ones, and I have. And what they tell me is they would like to see us get our fiscal house in order, fewer regulations, and even research and development. Have that so that it's not 1 year you have credits for that, 1 year you don't. Have that in place so they can create jobs. I've sat down at the ADMs. I've taken these people's concerns and gone to the folks that create the jobs, and asked them what we need to do. I think I have that knowledge. I think I put it in practice with whether it's advocating that the highway get built and employing 600, where they employ 600 people, helping with a new gas station, truck stop, subway. I'm involved in that. I've actually put myself in toe-to-toe with a man who said, Rick Perry wants me to come to Texas and ask him. I mean, unless you've done that, you really don't understand how hard it is. And it's not about attracting, and that's another thing. It's not about just attracting business. How about keeping them here? When, just with people, when U-Haul says we don't have enough trucks because we depend on people moving to Illinois to bring them back, we got a problem, because no one's moving here. They're all moving out.